marriage, where it's men and women, are not equal. And to say that we are equal, isn't that an insult to you?
I don't really get caught up in that whole I need to feel equal to everybody else kind of mentality. So it's not an insult to me, but it's not important.
I think we have a complementarian marriage in a lot of regards.
Okay.
And I think it should be that way. I think, now, before everybody gets all crazy that I'm weird and one of those people.
Like wants a John MacArthur type marriage.
Yes, but I don't necessarily think he's wrong, though, either.
I don't think what he wants is bad.
I mean, it's like Spider-Man, and I think you said it once, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay, and yes, in John MacArthur's view, where men should rule over their wives, men have a great power in that, but with that, it can be abused. And I don't think it should be. And men who are listening, if you abuse that power, shame on you.
Yeah.
Because that's not cool. But I don't think it's unrealistic to say that men should protect their wives.
Yeah, and I don't think that means that we're assuming all women are weak when we say that. But it's like, here's the thing. Isn't that what we're looking for when we want a relationship in the first place with anyone? We're looking for someone else to make us feel safe, to make us feel protected. And I think an allowance of that kind of dependency on one another isn't wrong. I want to be able to depend on you. I want to know that you're going to protect me and shield me when you have the capacity to, the ability to. And I want to be able to provide that for you too, but I'm not going to provide it for you in the same sense that you would for me necessarily either. And I'm okay with that.
Yes, and I think men should be responsible for financially providing for their family. And
well, because a man would have to be responsible for himself anyway, just as a woman would too. And so I think we should at least clarify that there are assumptions that we can make that people are being individually and independently responsible for themselves. And so if you enter into a family, you kind of extend that.
What do you mean?
To everyone who you surround yourself with. You already have to be responsible for yourself.
Yes. When
you're willing to connect yourself to other people, that means you're going to be financially responsible for them as well.
Yeah.
That should be a given. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't even be something we should even have to, clarify. It should just be an assumed. Don't you think? Like men, if you have a family, you are supposed to take care of them financially. But women do so too. And maybe it's not financially, but there is an obvious and assumed support system that you bring to a relationship.
But the other thing I was going to point out is that, mothers have a relationship with their children that fathers will never have.
I agree.
And I think that is to be protected. I think that is to be... we need to make sure that, that is stable. I mean, you're the nurturing one. You're the one who answers the call of, Mommy, can I do this? Mommy, can I do that?
Yeah.
And even when they ask me, Daddy, can I do this? What'd your mom say? Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, let's face it, in this house, I don't rule over you. It's the other way around. Within the walls of this house, this is your domain. This is yours.
And so, even though that kind of ideology exists that suggests that the man should rule over his wife, do you really think that's going on in 90% of households?
No.
Not even the ones who claim that that's how they roll.
Yep.
They're like, I'm the boss. But when they get home, they're like, I didn't say I was the boss. I said you were the boss, babe.
Going back to the beginning part of our conversation and your triple penetration thing.
Oh, yes, the triple penetration concept.
The triple penetration concept.
We just like saying the triple penetration concept.
Yes, I do.
It sounds a whole lot dirtier than it actually is.
No, it doesn't.
What do you mean?
What?
It does too. It's not that dirty. It's an intellectual concept. It's not...
Anyway. Now I lost my train of thought again. Damn it.
Men are not ruling their homes.
Oh yeah. I think in most marriages, men are not ruling over their wives because boobs. That's why.
Distraction.
Yeah. Speaking of which, but
Focus.
Focus
on the microphone.
What? I can't even talk.
I got you all Twitter pated and shit.
But yeah, I think that I don't like the egalitarian thing. I don't think that...
Well, okay, and here's something funny about that ideology is that Esther Perel writes about how that interferes with desire.
Yeah.
And having this quid pro quo, having this equal fairsy, I don't dominate, you don't dominate, no one submits kind of ideology is what we want at work, at the grocery store, in church, whatever. But that doesn't work in the bedroom because it becomes too PC. And you have to be like, okay, well, have we given each other the same amount of oral focus here? It's been 2.7 minutes.
Huh?
Yeah, oral. Well, I mean, if you're going to be equal about foreplay and... Cory,
what?
Stop. Let's stay on topic here. Goodness, that's on your brain. Okay, that doesn't work. And so Perel often talks about that's why you need to allow space for aggression and jealousy and distance to kind of fuel that because, yeah, it just doesn't work because you're too PC, you're too like, I need to be all concerned about you, and you can't be ravenous and you can't ravish each other, and you can't have that push and pull dynamic of dominating and submitting and taking turns if you're all worried about making sure that, again, you've spent the same amount of time on the oral focus as you do something else, and boring. But men are scared to be dominant in the bedroom nowadays, especially in the millennial generation. I've read about that. I mean, there are so many studies dedicated. Sex is like significantly changing with this new generation.
Yeah.
And it's both a really scary field to operate in because nobody knows what's what anymore. And even when you say consent, you're not 100% sure that consent is still the same consent 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. Are you still consenting? Do you consent to me switching positions? Can we flip? I mean, do you know what I mean? It can get that kind of ridiculous that it just makes you go, Pornhub.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or Tinder, no connections. I know what I'm getting here.
Mm-hmm.
And so sex has become this robotic act that we won't connect to, because if we do connect to it, we need to make sure that we're consenting to the connection. And what a fuck fest. And then literally no fucking in any kind of Festivus enterprise because you're too worried about fucking it up while you're fucking. And I just said fucking a lot. I better put a disclaimer on that podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's how ridiculous it gets.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I mean, being dominant when we're having sex is tough sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm always like, are you okay? Is this all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah.
It is hard. Yeah.
It is.
Because if you take it too far, that one instance, it can traumatize a person.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you hurt me a couple weeks ago. And I was willing to be that submissive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just wasn't ready for it. And was walking funny. But, yeah. But, I mean, didn't that concern you?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a podcast, so I need you to speak to this.
Well, yes, it did concern me.
Okay, and so then what was your concern?
I don't know what you mean. Like, I don't understand.
What were you? So then the next time I told you to be dominant, did you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There we go. Catch up.
Well, see, gosh, it confused me all the time. Yeah, I mean, it is a concern. I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to, like, make you...
But even when we're not doing such graphic, intimate things, I mean, being dominant with any kind of urges with me is sometimes difficult, especially if I'm sending off vibes.
Yeah.
And then you're like, can I just grab my wife's butt today?
Oh,
Can
yeah.
I kiss her an extra kiss, like, without her going, what's up? Or why are you in my face? Or...
Yeah, like, just flirting even in the kitchen. Sometimes if I'm getting vibes, I'm like, yeah, I think we're going to just steer clear of her today.
Yeah. And that's usually just because I've got stuff going on in my head and I'm just not even receptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, women control the sex life far more than I think they realize.
And this is a hard discussion for me to engage in because I agree with you, but I don't really know if that means that just because we experience it that way, that's the...
From male friends and acquaintances that I have talked to, that's been the general.
Okay, and so if I'm being honest too, I guess, I mean, from all of the people that reach out to me and kind of share their stories with me, that's the gist of it. If the wife is not into it, if she's not feeling it, if she wants to say for the next 9 months we're not having sex, that's just the way it goes. And I think that's awful. I think that's awful to have a sexually disconnected relationship if you both haven't discussed about this and then agreed on it. I think that's awful.
Even though you're guilty of it from time to time?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
But I don't take it completely off the table. I'm talking about the women who have taken it off the table. And they're like, I've had kids, or I'm pregnant, or this happened, or, you know, we're not having kids anymore, so what's the point? I mean, there's a lot of those kind of situations and instances that actually are occurring right now with people. And I just think, but did you have that discussion with your partner, or did you just go, no, we done? And then you didn't even include them in on that.
And do you think...
And should that be something you present before you marry someone?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to this whole complementarianism thing. Husbands, you shall rule over your wives. Do you think that's what they were talking about? Husbands, you need to be maybe a little bit more forceful in that regard, you know? I mean, and maybe when they was telling women you need to submit to your husbands because that kind of stuff needs to be going on. They knew that, hey, you need to be having sex. I'm throwing that out there. I don't know.
No, and that's a really good idea. And actually, so you know how I've been following this John MacArthur story.
Yes.
And I've just been kind of like fascinated and intrigued by just all the outrage and upset. But then I actually like took time to like watch a lot of his content, a lot of his sermons, a lot of his speeches, just to kind of figure out who he was. Because I'm like, I see everybody jumping on board, so they have an experience with John MacArthur, but what's my experience with him? Well, I'm going to go check it out. And at first I was like, do I even want an experience with understanding John MacArthur? What's the point? But the way I am too is when everyone else is like, I hate this person, let's all hate him. I'm like, ooh, can I figure out a way to like this person? You know, that's just what I do. And I like a lot of what he says. I don't agree with his anti-gay ideologies. I don't like how he's so blatantly obvious about his disdain that he has particular people. Like, I mean, he's kind of like it. Whenever any of us resort to being childish and literally calling out specific people and calling them names and attacking their character, it's not the best of anybody. And so I don't agree with that. But a lot of his ideology, while I think is, you know, something he's just had an insulated experience with and never found any... I don't think he found any reason to jump outside of the box that he was in. He was content in his box. The box works for him. And so the people that are no longer in a box, like, just want to go and, like, dump everyone out of their boxes so quickly without understanding why they're in their box. And so anyway, long story short, I wanted to know who he was before I was willing to, like, criticize him or judge him. And actually what I learned of him, I actually couldn't criticize too much. I like his idea about... While he goes on about how wives need to submit to their husbands, and he has this kind of like approach where he references Eve and he talks about the garden, and the curse is that your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you. You get caught up in that idea of like, is it the desire that will rule over her, or does the husband need to rule over her because otherwise the desire will rule over her? And MacArthur's perspective suggests that the woman's desires will rule over her and she will have this desire to dominate her husband, which was what she demonstrated during the fall and the serpent and the forbidden fruit and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is that she followed her desires to such a point, and then Adam wasn't willing to say, "Woman, no." And he took the bite because he loved her so much, he was willing to literally die for her, which is the curse from God to Adam. You know, you're going to toil for this woman. You will labor to death for her. I mean, you weigh out the burdens here, and they're both pretty significant. And so, I don't know. I don't disagree with that ideology. I've actually started opening my mind to that ideology and relating it to that other ideology from Alexander Shaya that I told you about, his idea about this, you know, God is a parent kicking the kids out of the nest. Like, go find me on your own now that I've already told you where I am, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You know?
I'll be here, but you need to go experience life type of thing.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I can juxtapose those two ideologies together and think they're both really good. And they explain a lot of humanity and marriages and what we have to wrestle with. But I don't think he's overall bad. And I don't think... I've never understood why people were upset about the complementarian relationship style, because I thought that was kind of like what we were supposed to do for one another. We complement each other. We complete each other. We fill in for each other. You're strength and tall, and I'm short and gentle and nurturing. I don't know. I don't think... Or something sometimes when I'm not being a selfish poo. But I think we're supposed to fill in the gaps for each other.
I agree.
I think if we both come with all of the gaps filled in, I can't help but wonder what the benefit is for us to be together. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't need you to do this for me, or I don't need you to be this for me because I'm this way. You know what I mean? And the same with... And so if you already come with, all those pieces filled in, it's like, am I even a piece in this equation?
I can't help but wonder. That's part of why divorce rates are so high.
It could be.
Just a thought.